What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here live for your NFL Week 9 Power Rankings. But as you can see by the title, I'm doing it a little bit differently. We are going to rank every NFL team, of course, from number 32 to number 1, but we are going to do it differently. We are going to do an NFL tier list. It is the mid-season. We just got past the first 8 games of the NFL season, and I feel like it's time for an update. It's time for an update on predictions. It's time for an update on feelings, especially with this weird NFL season that is extremely different from most other seasons, totally unpredictable. In my opinion, a lot more competitive from top to bottom than any other season I can remember. You may say that's because of good football at the bottom of the league. You may say that's because of bad football at the top of the league. But I want to rank every team, put them in a tier, give you my expectations for that team for the rest of the season, and let you know how I feel about your favorite team, whether or not they can make the playoffs, whether or not they can win the Super Bowl, and whether or not they will be picking in the top 5 in the NFL draft. So if that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button. Show your support in the chat. Show your support in the comments. Leave me a comment. Let me know. Any comment whatsoever in the comment section below. Also, spike the noti bell for the latest upload here on the Bottom Line View to be notified when I go live. We are going to be doing some mid-season content for the rest of the week. The next tier list that I will be doing will be quarterbacks. So we're going to do a quarterback tier list, and I'm going to rank every starter from number 32 to number 1 sometime this week. Maybe Friday. We'll see. But let's get to the team rankings and waste no more time. Let me know how you rank your favorite team in the comment section below. What's up, everybody in the chat? What's up, Singh, Lenny B, Hector, Jermari? What's going on, guys? All right, let's get to it. Let's share the screen. And I'm going to have my computer webcam on because I'm looking at the screen. So we're going to go like this. And hold on. Just make me a little smaller just in case. And we should be good just like this. Okay. So, time to rank some NFL teams. Are you ready? Okay. Beginning with the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are a team that nobody can really figure out. Nobody knows if they're a contender. Nobody knows if they suck. Nobody knows what they are. Okay? And we've got to also name these. So I had them set up before for the thumbnail, but I guess because I reshuffled it, they are no longer there. So let's put favorite. Now we're going to do contender. And then we're going to do playoff question mark. Then we're going to do average. And then we're going to do below average. If hopefully we can get that better. Okay, no. Okay, never mind. How about bad? How about bad? Bad's good. Then let's add one more tier. And let's go with the final tier will be number 1 pick question mark. Okay. So those are our tiers. What's going on, Dried Ocean? What's going on, Caesar? Nice to see you guys. Caesar, you killed your cat. What's going on with that, man? Holy. Okay. So the Cardinals, as I was saying, nobody knows what this team is. Kyler Murray, a roller coaster. Cliff Kingsbury, a roller coaster with sunglasses on. Defensively, they are also sort of a roller coaster. I mean, at times they play above their heads. At other times, they don't live up to expectations. I feel like they're well coached on defense. I feel like they're not well coached on offense. They've got great talent on offense that overcomes bad coaching on offense. The coaching is really on defense, where they don't have the greatest talent in the world. I think this is a team that can be kind of a pain in the butt for a lot of teams down the stretch, but I don't view them as a very good team. I think they'll likely finish last in their division, but I don't also think that means they're bad. I think the Cardinals are a pretty average team. Maybe I'll adjust that to move them down, but I don't see them making the playoffs. They're certainly not a contender because they're too inconsistent. I don't trust their defense. Their offense is a lot of the times just not consistent enough that Kyler Murray tends to make some mistakes, just as he did in that Vikings game. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals at average. Okay? So the Atlanta Falcons are next, and the Falcons currently lead their division, the NFC South. That means that they currently are a playoff team. But will they remain a playoff team is the question. I think from a coaching perspective, they've been the best coached NFC South team. I think they know who they are better than any team in the NFC South. But I also know that they have limitations from a player perspective, from a personnel perspective. And I do think that will hold them back. I've also seen them far too many times lose to teams that are better than them and play competitively with teams that they are better than on paper, like the Panthers this past week. They probably should have lost to the Panthers, to be honest with you. But because of the coaching, because of their game plans, because of how different and unique their offense can be and the ways they can attack you, they are a team that can consistently be in games, and because of that, I put them in the average category. We will rank the teams as well at the end, but I'll put them in the average category. The Baltimore Ravens are next up. I think the Ravens are pretty easily a playoff team. The question is, are the Ravens a playoff team, a contender, or a favorite? Now, for me, they're certainly not a favorite. There are teams in the AFC that are viewed above them and as they should be. So they're not a favorite. A contender. Some people would say they're a contender, especially after the trade for Roquan Smith. But they've been up and down this year. They have not really found ways to close leads other than this past week against Tampa Bay, where they most impressively closed the game out. Defensively, they have not been a typical Ravens unit, but they've been getting better in the secondary. They've been getting some players back at the pass rushing positions, like Bowser, for example, who's just come off of injury. Roquan Smith should help the middle of the field, should help their speed defensively, should help them defend the middle of the field a bit better, and should help in coverage and run defense overall. I do worry about their pass rush. I do worry about their lack of pure pass rushers to make them be, very much reliant on the big people in the inside to stop the run and then having to blitz too much, and that just leaves their secondary susceptible. Offensively, their run game has gotten better with their running backs as the season has gone on. Gus Edwards helps the cause. Kenyon Drake has been a nice add for them, and the offensive line has been getting better since Ronnie Stanley's been back. But they definitely could use some more weapons. The weapons certainly have been lacking for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, as of late, has not been at his best passing the ball. And I always wonder about if he and this team is going to be at its best in the playoffs in January when they need to pass in the fourth quarter / when they're down in games. Mark Andrews is a beast, but Rashad Bateman has not lived up to expectations, including the injuries he's suffered. Duvernay is a nice weapon. I like players on their team, but I don't think they are a team that I, at the end of the day, can view lifting the Super Bowl. I just don't think they can do it because I see too many holes in important spots. But I do think that they're a team that should be taken seriously And I do think they're a team that can upset most NFL teams. So because of that, I'm going to put them in the contender category. The Buffalo Bills are the next team. The Bills are certainly favorites. As everybody knows, they're the number one team in the Vegas markets, in the betting markets, to win the Super Bowl, as they probably should be. I don't think they're a team without flaws. I don't think they're a perfect team by any means, but they are probably so far this year the best team. They do have Josh Allen, who's arguably 1A, 1B, the best quarterback in football. The offensive line has been, I think, better than last year. The run game, I think, is better than they really think it is. I mean, it's efficient, but they don't use it in the spots they probably should. And it feels like they're a bit scared to lean on the run game. Now, they did add Nyheim Hines at the trade deadline. He's another weapon they can utilize. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie. They've got plenty of weapons offensively. Defensively, they're really strong, and I'd like to see how they look with Tre'Davious White, because obviously he's a number one corner when he's healthy. The question is, will he still be the same guy coming back? Pass rush is stronger than years past. That helps. Run defense is still susceptible, and there's certainly weaknesses with run O and run D, but those are, I would say, not as detrimental as years past. So I think the Bills are the favorites to come out of the AFC and win the Super Bowl. Carolina Panthers are next. The Panthers looked like the worst team in football with Baker Mayfield. Since putting in Pajama Walker, PJ Walker, they have looked like a more competent passing game. They've been getting the football to DJ Moore. They've been finding ways to run the ball with Foreman. And the offense has been getting better with PJ Walker, with his opportunity there. Defensively, they've been up and down. I think early in the year when they were fully healthy, they were very good, but they were just on the field too much, which really hurt them. But as of late, they've gotten some more injuries. You look at the Atlanta game, and they just haven't been quite the same unit. I think Carolina is one of those teams that could very well get the first pick, but I also don't view them as that bad of a football team. And I think that's just kind of where we're at in the NFL right now. Even the worst teams, I can see winning games on a weekly basis. So Carolina, I'm going to put in the number one pick category, but I think that's more by design out of their team than really the talent or the coaching staff would indicate, if that makes sense. I think the talent is still fighting their asses off, but the franchise kind of wants them to lose. Chicago, this is tough. So this is similar. Chicago is fighting hard. They destroyed the Patriots on Monday night, shockingly. They won 3 games already, including beating the Niners in week 1. They have been getting better on offense as of late, but they've also lost some pieces on defense. Robert Quinn on the D-line, Roquan Smith at linebacker. The secondary is young and promising and getting better and improving. The offense will get better, I think, in the passing game, thanks to Chase Claypool and having another weapon opposite Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert. There's some guys there. They can run the ball well. They figured out the formula with Justin Fields. But I do think that defense taking a step back is a real possibility. I've been impressed with Chicago's coaching for the most part in the recent weeks with how they've adjusted on offense, most importantly. I don't think they're going to get the first pick. I don't know if they're in that conversation, although they might want to be. I'm going to put them in the bad category. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think they've got much of a chance to make the playoffs. Maybe if they kept Roquan Smith, you could see them be a little bit more competitive, but this team clearly wants to be in the top 10, so I'm going to put them in the bad. Cincinnati Bengals are next. The Bengals are tough because they started the season really slow, And it was mostly on the back of Joe Burrow not playing that well, offensive line not playing that well, Zach Taylor just being Zach Taylor, and they couldn't find a flow offensively. Now, Jamar Chase is hurt. Now, they do lose to Cleveland Browns a lot. Okay, so we know this. It's a bad matchup for them, so you can't take too much out of that. But at the same time, you wonder if this team is going to be the same throughout this stretch and be able to endure no Jamar Chase, because I think that's a massive loss for them. No Jamar Chase is a massive loss. That could cause them to lose and fall in a couple games that they shouldn't have, okay? I think Cincinnati, though, with Joe Burrow there, with the weapons they offer, with the defense healthy, I think they're a good team. But I think they're also a more inconsistent team than the top tier. I would put Cincinnati at full strength in the contender tier, but I'm also a little bit scared about that schedule. I'm a little bit scared about Chase being out and how big of an impact that could have. So I'm just going to put them in the playoffs. I don't know if I'm willing to put them in contender, because as good as this team has been in stretches and in moments so far this year, they've also shown that they can lose to just about any team. So I'm going to put them in the playoffs. The Cleveland Browns are next. The Browns are an average team pretty decisively. Now, with Deshaun Watson, they probably would be better than that, no doubt. But Jacoby Brissett has played pretty admirably this year. I think he's been very under the radar, very underrated for this football team. Their defense certainly has matchups where they struggle against power run teams that can stay balanced. But they do play well in certain matchups. Teams that are more pass-centric, teams that allow their pass rush to get there. They can definitely dominate weak O-lines. Offensively, they can run the ball well. They do have more weapons than you would think. But I just think this schedule's tough, and I don't think they're going to be able to overcome that early season struggle. So I'm going to put them in the average. The Dallas Cowboys, I'm going to put as a contender. The Dallas Cowboys have one of the best defenses in football. They can play man or zone coverage. They're creative on defense under Dan Quinn. They can blitz you. They can rush 4. They've got a good D-line. I think they have helped their run defense with additions like Jonathan Hankins. I do love the linebacker depth. I do love the versatility of the front 7. I think Trayvon Diggs has been playing very, very well. And offensively, they should continue to get better and better and better. You know, with Dak continuing to just find chemistry with that offense as it stands right now, because he's coming off that injury. And I think Dak is just going to build rapport with how they want to play on offense. I still don't think they've found that pure identity yet. It's more run-centric than it's been in the past. But I put the Cowboys in the contender tier. The Denver Broncos are... This is tough, honestly. I think you could sell me on bad. You could also sell me on average. They sold Bradley Chubb at the deadline. They also got back Jacob Martin, and they got some assets for the future. They also added Chase Edmonds to running back, which should help. But I look at this team and I say, I don't really see any chance of them making the playoffs. I think they're the worst team in their division. I do really like their defense. I do think they played a lot better against Jacksonville. But ultimately, I think this is a bad football team. I think they're poorly coached on offense. I think Russell Wilson has played pretty bad. I think the receiving core is just overrated in general. The run game isn't the same without Javonte Williams. The offensive line's beat up. The defense, again, is strong, and it's one of the best in football, and it will keep them in games. But the question is, can they actually win them when they're close? And they haven't proven to do that consistently. So I'm going to put them in the bad tier. The Detroit Lions are next. I also think they're a bad football team. Detroit might also be in the number 1 pick category just because they can't find ways to win. But Detroit is one of those teams that actually has a lot more talent than their record would suggest. Like, I think you look at Detroit, they're clearly on paper more talented offensive team than a team like Chicago, or even Denver, really. I mean, Detroit is a really talented offensive team, and they can move the football on a lot of teams. That keeps them in a lot of games, and that will be interesting to see the second half of the season. Hopefully, we see a glimpse of Jameson Williams at some point. They traded TJ Hawkinson, though. That should hurt them. Defensively, they have been getting better. They have been playing better. I think Detroit is, one of the... They're a top half offense with a bottom tier defense. So I think the Lions are a bad football team that moves the ball in just about any team, but they can't find a way to close games. So I got them in the bad tier. Kind of the opposite of Denver, to be honest with you. The Green Bay Packers are an average team. I think the Packers, I could maybe be sold on, could they turn this around and make the playoffs? Maybe. I don't think they're a bad team. It's hard to be bad when you have Aaron Rodgers. Their defense is very good against the pass. They cause turnovers. They cause havoc as a pass rushing unit. But they are definitely susceptible against the run, and when teams can stay balanced on them, they can move the football. On the other side, their identity should be running the ball, but they refuse to lean into that as much as they should. Let's see if they can turn that around. Receivers are still huge question marks at the midseason. It has not changed. But this is a team that the coach needs to figure it out, and they've been underwhelming, for sure. The Houston Texans are a number 1 pick candidate, and they might be the worst team in the league. They did a disservice to Brandon Cooks and his career by not trading him today. That was disappointing for the Texans. I think Houston's got a terrible run defense. They can't tackle. They're undisciplined in run defense. Pass defense-wise, they're fairly solid. They've got some young ballers back there in the secondary. Offensively, they can run the ball on you, but that's about it. I think Mills has kind of proven to be what we thought he would be, which is like a low-end starter, high-end backup. Smart guy, but just not it. Texans will be looking for a quarterback with one of the best picks in the draft. The Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to put them in the bad. But, I mean, you could sell me on if they can't get any offense going, they could be a top 5 pick type of team, and I wouldn't be surprised. But I have too much respect for some of the players on that team and the defense they have. They've got a good defense, got a strong defensive line. They've got a solid secondary, Gilmore, Moore. Leonard should be healthy in the second half of the year. Buckner's still there. They've got a strong defensive line against the run and the pass. Offensively, though, they're a mess. Like Sam Ellinger's in there, Ellinger, whatever you call him. And he didn't look the part in his first game. The run game is a mess. They can't find a way to run the ball consistently. The receiving core is talented, honestly. I like the 3 receivers they have. I just don't think they've got the quarterback to deliver them the ball. We'll see if Frank Reich can keep his job. I think that's going to be the story of the second half of the season for the Colts. Maybe they overachieve and he keeps his job. If they underachieve, maybe he's gone. Who knows? Jacksonville is also a bad football team, but it's not because of talent. Jacksonville's a bad team because they just don't know how to win games. They have a losing culture. They consistently turn the ball over when they shouldn't. Trevor Lawrence is super roller coaster play. He's all over the map with his accuracy and his composure. The running game is strong with Travis Etienne, and I'm glad they traded James Robinson to give him the full carries and workload. I do think that Calvin Ridley next year is going to be an awesome addition, but that's next year. This is a team that's playing for next year. And defensively, they're disappointing. They're disappointing me right now. I think they looked good in the early season, and they looked promising coming into the year, but some of their players have not developed the way that you thought they might. So they're a bad team. Kansas City is a favorite. As much as I hate to admit it, Kansas City is right in the mix for the Super Bowl this year. And before the season, I didn't think that was a possibility, to be honest with you. But that was also looking at the NFL with a lens that I thought this NFL would be a lot better than it is. And sometimes when you have an NFL that is faltering, that is falling short of expectations, you've got numerous teams like the Rams, the Bucs, the Packers, the Bengals to a certain degree, the Broncos, teams that you thought would be better than they are, and they're just not. And when you have a Mahomes and you have an Andy Reid and you have the stability of that, you still belong in that conversation. On top of that, the offensive line has improved from last year. I think they're very good, one of the top 3 units in the league. I think they can run the ball sometimes, although they need more consistency out of that if they want to win the Super Bowl. The receiving core will be interesting to see in the second half. Juju has gotten better and better and better. Valdez-Scantling has not looked the part of his contract. Could Kadarius Toney step into that offense and be a difference-making playmaker? We will see. Kelsey's still playing at a high level. Defensively, they've struggled. Not as much as they did early last year. So the hope is that Kansas City gets maybe a little bit healthier in the secondary, a little bit healthier on defense, and Spagnuolo continues to improve these young players. That could very well happen, but I don't think their defense is necessarily a championship defense. They're going to have to play through their offense in order to win the Super Bowl, but they still have that type of offense where they can do so. So I have the Chiefs as a favorite. The Chargers, this is a tough one. They're certainly not a number 1 pick. They're certainly not bad. I could see you putting them in the playoffs. I could also see you putting them in the average category. I don't view them as a contender. I did once upon a time. But this is where I have a tough time ranking this team. Their defense has been disappointing, like no other defense in football. Yes, they've had some injuries, but Brandon Staley has been a huge disappointment from a scheme perspective. He has not figured out how to stop the run. That continues to hurt this football team, continues to allow other teams to dictate the pace of play, dictate time of possession, put Justin Herbert on his butt on the sidelines. And offensively, their identity does not suit Justin Herbert. They're a short passing game, and it just doesn't electrify me the way that I thought it would. So I've got the Chargers as an average team. I think, honestly, if you put a gun to my head for the rest of the year, are the Chargers going to make the playoffs? I would probably say no. I just don't believe in this defense. I think any team with a semblance of a good running game can play with the Chargers. And that definitely makes me, just frustrated, but also aware that they just have yet to hit that next level. The LA Rams are next. Now, guys, I didn't organize this. I didn't pre-rank this, so I have no idea how this is going to go. Okay, so I may have to reorganize some of these teams at the end of the day. But the Rams are another team that I look at and I say, there's no way I see this team going to the playoffs. Like, at this point in the season, I didn't think I'd be saying that, but there are far too many holes on this team. Offensively, their offensive line can't protect. They get overpowered consistently. They are the worst running game in the league, even worse than the Bucs, and that's saying something. They have one receiver who is now banged up and injured, and I don't think Odell's coming back to save this team. They're not adding a Von Miller to defense. Their defense is still playing hard, and they're not terrible by any means on defense. They still got Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, a pretty decent defensive line, Leonard Floyd, Bobby Wagner's playing pretty well, but they've got far too many weaknesses, and the offense just isn't the same. Like, this is a Sean McVay team that just can't play offense the same way. They're not balanced, and everybody knows where the ball is going. I think this is an average team because I think their coaching and their quarterback and their elite players prop them up to a level that they probably shouldn't be. but I think they beat the bad teams for the rest of the year, and they find themselves at a 7-ish win record, honestly. Like, I don't think they're going to be much better than 7, 8, maybe at the best 9 wins. Like, that's kind of where this team is at to me. So, the Rams are average. Next, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, I think this is the week where I'm not going to say I'm officially off the bandwagon. I think you look at their schedule coming up, and there's certainly wins to be had there. But the Raiders have been disappointing. And a lot of it comes down to their inability to win the games at the beginning of the year, losing some close games at the beginning of the year, which has hurt their record. I do think this team is a little like the Chargers. I think they've got a very good offense when it's clicking, but they can be stifled at times. But their defense is unreliable. Their defense just is unreliable. And it's more so for the Raiders through the passing game. I've just seen too many games and too many stretches where the Raiders defense just doesn't hold their end of the bargain. And I don't think that's fixable right now with the players they have on their team. I think this is a personnel issue more than it is a coaching issue. And I do think the Raiders will be a competitive team that's tough to play down the stretch, but I don't view them getting into the playoffs. I just think they've lost too many games at the beginning of the year. It's going to be hard to overcome. Losing, I think they're 2-5 right now, and they've got to play the Niners, the Chiefs. They've got to play those teams, and that's not even, including teams like New England and the Rams and the Chargers that they've got to play as well. So this is a Raiders team that I thought would have a better record than they do currently. They're certainly more talented, and they certainly can play with some of the best teams in the league, but they just don't win the games. Next team is an extremely intriguing one. It's the Miami Dolphins, okay? So the Dolphins are a team now that has Bradley Chubb. They add him to the mix defensively, right? This is a team that at times has looked like a contender. This is a team that early in the year was undefeated with Tua. They were on a hot streak. They beat the Patriots. They beat the Ravens. They beat the Bills at one point. They were looking great, right? This is also a Dolphins team that's looked fairly average the last couple of weeks. Barely beating the Lions. Barely beating the Steelers. This is also a Dolphins team without Tua that looked pretty friggin' bad. So they've been kind of all over the map, right? Now, considering health, considering the quarterback being there now, considering Tyreek Hill being an absolute monster, the best receiver in the NFL, with a record that is just insane. He already tied 4 games with 150 yards and 10-plus receptions in a game. That's insane. So Tyreek Hill's carrying. Jalen Waddle's a beast. They kept Mike Gesicki around. He's still making plays and scoring touchdowns. I could see this team winning a playoff game, but I don't trust certain things on their team. So I'm going to put them in the playoffs, okay? The reason why I don't trust their offensive line against good defenses, I don't trust the offense in general versus good defenses. I understand that sounds kind of backwards, but when you really look at their production this year, you look at the games they played against good defenses, they have not scored points. Just, they couldn't score points against the Steelers. They struggled to score offensive points against the Patriots. They struggled to score against the Bills. They've had a couple blow-up games, but otherwise they haven't been able to get it done. And defensively, they've been too inconsistent, right? They're going to get better adding Chubb, and they're going to get healthier in the secondary, and that should be nice. But they've been too inconsistent on defense to win as a defensive team, and they've been too inconsistent on offense for me to reliably say entering the playoffs that I'm going to favor them to beat any team in the playoffs, really. So I could see them making the playoffs. I could see them winning a playoff game. But after that, I can't see anything past that. I just think there's too many. And the other thing with the Dolphins is Mike McDaniel, as a head coach, I do think makes some iffy decisions. I like him as an offensive coordinator and what he's been able to do with this offense in terms of the play calling and making Tua better. But I don't view them as a Super Bowl team. Okay. The Minnesota Vikings are next. The Vikings also made a trade today for TJ Hawkinson. Offensively, they're pretty solid. They can run the ball with Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. They had a great performance against the Cardinals, running the rock, running the football. They also, from a passing perspective, should add TJ Hawkinson in the mix, have Justin Jefferson, have KJ Osborne, have Adam Thielen. They've got plenty of talent to win one-on-one matchups. And Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. Is he great? No, but he's good. He's accurate. He's consistent, especially when you're playing at 1 p.m. Eastern time. He's going to win those games. Defensively, they've got some playmakers up front. They're a solid run defense with some big boys in the middle that are tough to move, like Harrison Phillips. And Zadarius Smith has come to play this year. Harrison Smith can still play. Eric Kendricks can still play, but their corner position is very, very iffy. I think the Vikings are a team that are 6-1, but aren't quite as good as their record suggests. I think they'll make the playoffs without a doubt. I think they'll win their division without a doubt. But I don't actually see them as a team that I realistically can see tying together 3 playoff wins. So I'm going to go with playoffs for the Vikings. Probably the NFC version of the Dolphins. The New England Patriots are next. And this one's real tough because I'm not sure where I'm going to rank them at this moment because of the rest of the teams on the board. So, yeah, let's go with the Patriots. I'm not going out of order here. But my first inclination for New England is that they are going to make the playoffs as like the 7th seed. That's kind of what I think they're going to do. And that's the projection of what I see. Could you easily rank them as an average team? Yeah, you could. But I think, with Mac back in there and hopefully continuing to improve along with this offense, they've found a great running game this year behind Ramondre Stevenson. The defense, I think, is only going to improve as they've got a lot of young players in the secondary, especially Jack Jones and these guys. I think the Patriots, when you look at it, great coaching, 4-4 right now, fairly easy schedule the rest of the way. No opponent do they play this year where I say, wow, they're outmatched, right? You look at the best teams they play, they're maybe a little bit more talented. The Vikings, the Bengals, but it's nothing crazy, right? They play the Bills, of course, but that's in division. So I view the Patriots as a team that is going to give a lot of teams a tough game that are better than them because of their coaching. But because of their coaching, they'll also decisively beat below average teams and bad teams, right? So that's why I put New England in that wild card tier. And I think Mac will continue to play better. And I think this defense is going to be real deal by the end of the year. This is a weird team because last year they were playing their best football around this point in the calendar. I think this team is actually going to play their best football when they need to play their best football in December. So I've got New England in the playoff question mark. Saints. I've got the Saints in the average tier. You could buy playoff. I could buy playoffs. I think there's a chance. Like, I think the Saints, the Bucks, and the Falcons can all make the playoffs. I think there's a realistic chance that any one of those 3 can win that division, realistically. But I put them in the average because I think their defense still needs to answer more questions. They're very inconsistent. Last week, they beat the Raiders because of that defense. But that was really the only standout performance they've had all year. Offensively, they've been getting better. Offensive line has been playing really well. They've been running the ball well. Chris Olave is playing well. Andy Dalton should be that quarterback for the rest of the year, in my opinion. And Taysom Hill makes plays. I think Dennis Allen is starting to figure out what to do with this team. So I do like the Saints moving forward. I think they're playing better. So the Saints are improving, but I just don't know if it's enough for them to push themselves into the playoffs. The Giants are next up. Giants are tough, man. Giants are really tough. Because I think ultimately they're going to make the playoffs. But I think it's mostly because of their schedule. I don't think they're going to be an actual good team that is worthy of making the playoffs. I think we saw when they played Seattle, they couldn't move the ball. When they can't run the ball, they can't move it. When they play a good coaching staff that's on Brian Daboll and Wink Martindale's level, they just aren't there, right? And this is a thing where I think they're going to make the playoffs, or they're just going to miss, but it's because of the schedule. So I'm going to put them in the playoffs, but it's not because I think they're a playoff team. Okay, I think they're going to win 9 or 10 games, right? But it's mostly because the coaching staff gives them a chance in every game. They will out-coach other teams. Daniel Jones is better than people think. The defense, I think, is a bit better than people think. They're definitely a tough defense to play. And Saquon's a stud. So I think they'll squeak in the playoffs, but it won't be pretty. The Jets, oof. So right now, I think I view the Jets as an average team, but I think you could look at the Jets as anywhere from playoffs to bad. I think if you put them in the playoffs, you're kind of crazy to me. I don't think they're quite playoff level. I could buy average because I think their defense is very strong, and I think they can play with any offense in the league and cause issues. I think they can also win games due to special teams, due to their running game at times. But I fear that this team is going to regress mightily over the second half of the year because their offense. I mean, we saw what Zach Wilson did in that Patriots game when forced to ad-lib and pass. So without that offensive line intact and without that running game intact, I fear that they could be a bad team. But out of respect what they've done for the first half of the year, I'm going to stick them in that average tier. The next team is the Philadelphia Eagles, and I put them as a favorite. The Philadelphia Eagles are a favorite. I think you could argue, and I think it's, honestly, I don't know if this is a hot take. I don't think it is. I think the Eagles have the best roster in the NFL, and I don't think it's that close. They've got a phenomenal offensive line with depth. They've got a great tight end. They've got 2 awesome receivers. They've got multiple running backs. Miles Sanders playing great football. Jalen Hurts has played really well, and he hasn't been perfect, but he's played really well. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes yards with his feet. He creates big plays with his arm. Defensively, they're deep on the D-line. They've got a huge rotation of players. They're strong in the interior and on the edge. They added Robert Quinn to that mix. Linebacker is not a weakness the way it used to be. Safety is probably the biggest weakness, but it's not bad. Corner is deep. Corner is good. I think the Eagles should be the team that people favor to win the NFC, but I don't know if they have the experience, especially at coach and quarterback, in order to make it to the Super Bowl, but that's a different question. So I put them at favorite for now. Steelers, I'm honestly going to put the Steelers, I think they're number 1 pick category, but out of respect for Mike Tomlin, I'm going to put them in bad. I do think their defense will get better because TJ Watt is going to come back. So that will make them better on defense. I do think William Jackson helps their defense. I do think that this is a team on offense that's pretty terrible. They do have talent, though. Like, there's no question they have talent. They've got a couple of receivers. They've got a tight end that can play. I think this season's all about finding out if Kenny Pickett can play. And the defense will keep them in games down the stretch, and Mike Tomlin will keep them competitive and keep them playing hard. So they'll win games they probably shouldn't win. Okay, so right now we've got the Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, Bengals, Patriots, Dolphins. So we've got 6 AFC teams in the playoffs. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 NFC teams. Eagles, Cowboys, Vikings, Giants, okay? So, that being said, Seattle Seahawks are going to be... Ooh, do I put the Seahawks? I might have to switch one of these, but hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So, for now, I'm going to throw Seattle in the playoffs. That might be shocking. I might be wrong about that. So, when looking at the NFC, I could see the Falcons. I could see the Packers. I could see the Rams. I could see the Saints. All of these teams. I don't think the Cardinals. Don't think they're good enough. But I could see the Saints, Rams, Packers, Falcons all making the playoffs. I'm going to put the Seahawks there for now, the way they're playing. Okay? And I know that sounds ridiculous, but look, this is a well-coached team. Pete Carroll has this team playing hard. I love the passion they play with. I love how they're playing defense right now. I think their defense is greatly improved. I think the defense for Seattle is young, hungry. In the secondary, Quandre Diggs is playing well. Of course, Tariq Woolen, the young corner, is up there in picks. I know that to be a fact. And I think their secondary is very, very underrated. And I think they just continue to get better. And they're really hard to run the ball against. I haven't seen a team stop the run against the Giants the way that I saw Seattle do that. I mean, it was insane how well they were penetrating, getting in the backfield, causing fits for that run game and that offensive line. It was very impressive. Very impressive defensive performance. The home field is extremely strong, so it's hard to go there and win. Geno Smith is playing really good football, really, really good game manager type football. Not saying he can't make plays, because he can, but he protects the ball. He knows what he's doing, and man, I think Geno's had a comeback player of the year type of year. Kenneth Walker is special. The offensive line is super underrated, especially at tackle. And the receivers are tough. I mean, you can't play man-to-man on the outside against DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. It's tough. So they stress you out that way. I feel like they've got a couple tight ends that can play. I think Seattle is still underrated. I've got them in the playoffs. San Francisco is without a doubt a contender. But for me, they're a favorite. So this is where I differentiate from some people. I think I have the Niners as one of the top dogs in the NFC, and I don't really care what their record is. It doesn't really matter to me. As we saw last year, it didn't really matter what their record was, and they were within a play of beating the Super Bowl champs. Jaquiski Tartt catches the ball. They probably win the Super Bowl last year, and this is arguably a more talented team than last season at full strength. Okay, their defense has been extremely beat up in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So, their defense has not been able to play at its peak level. But this defense, when it's at full strength, is probably the best defense in the NFL. I would say that with Armstead back, Kinlaw back, that they're going to dominate most teams at the line of scrimmage. Sets everything else up from there. The only guy that they're out for the year is Emmanuel Mosley, so they should get most of their players back. Offensively, though, is really where I have huge aspirations for this football team. Christian McCaffrey has been amazing so far as a 49er, and he opens up this offense and adds an explosive element to the running game that is going to change this team. He's so good in this scheme, the way he reads the blocking, the zone scheme, the way he cuts back, the way he sees the lanes, and he's amazing in the passing game. him, Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, it's a special offense, even with Jimmy Garoppolo there. And the young offensive line continues to get better. Trent Williams still playing at great levels. And Kyle Shanahan, is going to give many defensive schemes a tough time. So the 49ers, to me, are right with the Eagles for the two teams that I could see coming out of the NFC at the top of the list. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are right now probably the team that's going to win the NFC South, although you could argue that the Falcons or the Saints could be above them. Now, here's part of the thing that I look at halfway point. The Bucs have beaten the Falcons and the Saints already. So that definitely is a big deal. With the record that they have right now at 3-5 or whatever, beating the Falcons and beating the Saints is a big deal. So they play them once more throughout the rest of the year. But I look at that Thursday night game. I do think there were promising signs for the offense. I know that they hit a depressing part of the game. But as we talked about, the Ravens are a contender, right? So to lose to the Ravens isn't exactly a terrible thing, especially with all the injuries that the Bucs have on defense. If the Bucs can get healthy on defense and get back to where they were playing on defense at the beginning of the year, I think they'll enter the playoffs and even be a tough team to eliminate due to Tom Brady and a defense. But if they continue to play the way they have, depressingly so on offense, they'll probably fall out of the race and they'll probably finish third in this division. So they could finish anywhere from first to third. They could finish anywhere from winning 1 or 2 playoff games to going 6-11. I mean, this team probably has the largest range of outcomes among any team in the NFL for the rest of the season, because most of their issues do come down to coaching, really, at the end of the day. So if the coaching can figure it out a little bit and they can get healthier on defense and they can just play more consistent ball on offense, they still got a shot to make this run to the playoffs. But I would not expect them to be where they were supposedly at before the year, where they were supposed to be, which was contender, which was favorite. They're no longer in that category. They would be fortunate, right, to go far in the playoffs. Very fortunate. So, Tennessee Titans are the final AFC team. I've got them in the playoffs. I think they're going to win their division. And it comes down to Mike Vrabel. Now, it also comes down to the rest of the division is absolutely, positively terrible. Okay? Jacksonville's terrible. Houston's absolutely atrocious. The Colts have given up. So the Titans are really the only team left. But as long as Ryan Tannehill can come back soon, this team should make the playoffs. I mean, they've got a defense that's improving. Derrick Henry looks like Derrick Henry. They're starting to really run on people. And I think they're one of those teams that if they get in the playoffs, I think because of their experience, because of their coaching, because of the way they play, I don't think they're an easy team to eliminate. Even though they probably won't have a great record, I think even a 9-8 Titans team could play a Ravens in the first round, could play a Cincinnati in the first round and give them a real tough game, could play a Miami in the first game, give them a real good game. So I've got the Titans as the final team in the AFC playoffs. And the Washington Commanders, going to go in the bad, but they've played admirably as of late. Better quarterback play from them. Offensively, they've still been kind of depressing, but Terry McLaurin has been exciting to watch. Defensively, they've been playing well up front, but not well in the back end. We'll see how they play the rest of the year. I don't think you could argue they're an average team. I wouldn't hate that either, so don't get mad at me here, but Washington's bad. Washington's probably bad. I think they've just been benefiting from some schedule spots, so they should probably finish last in their division. Okay, that is it. That is the tier list, guys. That is it. So in the favorites, let's rank it now. We got the Bills, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Niners. So the way I'm going to rank it is I'm going to go for the rest of the season. I think the Eagles are going to finish first in the NFC. So I'll put them in second. And I'll put the Bills in first. And I think the Chiefs are going to finish pretty easily second in the AFC. I think the Niners, I don't know where they'll finish in terms of NFC hierarchy. They'll probably finish as the 3rd seed. I think the Vikings will probably finish above them most likely. Maybe. But I think the Niners are that contending team that it doesn't matter what their record is. Okay? So then that's the contenders. I've got the Cowboys above the Ravens. Then after that, we've got playoff level teams. The way I'm going to rank it is I'm going to go Giants last, Titans second to last. I'm going to go Seahawks. Then I'm going to go between the Patriots and the Bucs here. I think the Patriots have played better so far, so I'm going to put the Bucs. But can the Bucs get better? I don't know. I'm going to put the Bucs and then the Patriots. And then I'm going to put I'm going to put the Dolphins first. No. This is tough because I think the Dolphins might be better right now, but I could also see Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase back. You know, I could see that just because of last year, I could see the Bengals like upsetting teams in the playoffs. So it's tough for me to say. I'm going to put this is pretty even. These three are pretty even. I'll put the Dolphins, then the Vikings, then the Bengals, because I think the Bengals have more questions about whether or not they're going to make the playoffs. But I think if they can get there, they're going to be dangerous. Okay, so that's the order I'm going to go in. Then for average, I'm going to go Chargers, I think, first. Then I'm going to go Packers, just out of faith. Then I'm going to go Cardinals last, Jets second last. Browns are interesting because of Deshaun Watson. I don't know how that's going to work. I'm going to say the Rams will be third there. Then I'm going to put Browns, then Falcons. No, then Raiders, then Falcons, then Saints. Now let's put the Saints above the Falcons. So that's how I got it. That's tough. I mean, that's like flip of a coin kind of deal. Then bad, I'm going to go Broncos first. Then I'm going to go Washington. I think Washington. Then Jacksonville, then Chicago. Then Detroit. Then Indy, then Detroit, then Pittsburgh. And then I'm going to go Carolina and Houston. So that's going to be your tier rankings, guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know who you think the contenders are. Let me know who you think the pretenders are. It's Mitch of the BLV. Appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. And tomorrow we will have our picks for week number 9. Our best bets coming as well. Thank you guys for the support. And this week we will have an updated quarterback tiers with how I view them at this current moment in time and for the rest of the season. Thank you guys for watching. It's Mitch. Peace.